Bully was released in October of 2006, and at the time, it was kind of a controversial release. One of the few games of its kind, it had a high standard to live up to considering Rockstar was publishing it. Parents were ultimately torn on whether or not to purchase a game that promoted bullying and being a bully. In fact, just weeks after release, major media outlets such as NBC News published an article essentially punishing parents who chose to get a game like this for their kid. And even though the game was being looked down in that way, people still respected how well polished and fun the game actually was. But what made Bully so revolutionary? Was it the legendary developer Rockstar or something else? And pretty much in this video, we're going to cover everything to do with Bully and what made it a critical success. And I'll start here with the atmosphere of the game. It has the aesthetic of like this neo-gothic vibe, and it immediately makes you feel nostalgic. Bullworth really feels alive in the best way possible. And this is further enhanced as you progress in the story. You get to see the entire town and build relationships with different characters in their respective community. This game ultimately screams nostalgia too, because it makes you think of your old days at school, dealing with bullies, finding your clique, etc. So it all feels very grounded in reality. Immersion is a big part of this world, obviously. The development team wanted us to feel that by adding changing seasons and weather. To add to that, the timeline was never made clear on purpose. And things such as cars, architecture, buildings, all of that has elements of the 70s, 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. People have tried to pin down like an exact year that the game takes place in, but nothing has ever been directly proven or confirmed, making this game pretty much immune to time. And that's what's so cool and original about Bully. But anyway, the quirky and awkward and familiar atmosphere of Bully is a part of why the game is so fucking great. And it's why people still remember it so well to this day. There's still multiple thousands and thousands of people still talking about Bully. And now I'm going to talk about some of the gameplay aspects. And Bully does have a great balance of gameplay. To start off, the different weapon types are greatly appreciated. And it's all stuff that makes sense. You have marbles to trip people, a spud gun that shoots fucking potatoes, a slingshot, and so many more to count. It's like endless. But it really makes you feel like you can approach things differently during missions and side quests. It gives you that freedom of choice, essentially, in this game. And also something to touch on is the basic hand-to-hand combat is also pretty nice. It knows exactly what it is. It knows exactly what it is. Bully sticks to realism, and one can come to appreciate that for sure. This isn't GTA or a fighting game, so you can't really look for all that violent and, over-the-top combat. So that's why it's so appreciated. Even with that note, they still have different training sessions. You go to the gym, you go to the hobo to get trained. You learn a lot of different moves like the uppercut. You learn the different headbutt strengths, the gut punch, leg sweeps, knee drops. The development team was making sure that this was a fully polished combat system. For what the game is. You're a kid, and so they really wanted to make sure that this didn't feel like too crazy or too over the top. You know how many times I've been knocked out in Bully? You know how many times I've been, defeated in this game? It's actually hilarious because it makes you you're like, oh shit, I got my ass stomped. And that's the reality. If you start fighting a group of jocks or a group of nerds, ultimately, you're going to get jumped by that respective group. And that's what makes this game so realistic in that aspect. This is how school really did function, mess with one guy and you're going to mess with all the guys eventually, So that was really cool. And to add to that, there are mini games, and like I said earlier, side quests, collectibles, and like we literally were just talking about the techniques, and so much more. You even get to go to class, and that gameplay is kind of shown here a little bit, but you even get to go to class, and the mini games, they're all kind of like QTEs, button manipulation, button mashing, things of that nature. It's sweet to see that they implemented these tasks to make the game more immersive. And even though sometimes I was definitely annoyed with that experience, it was still enjoyable. It still was very much enjoyable. And another big thing to talk about, when you mention Bully, is the soundtrack and just the BGM. This The way everything sounds in Bully is very, very nice. It's straight up iconic. The wacky tunes play as you carry out your task. It adds to that experience. Nostalgia is just something that's gonna just keep coming up in the video, because ultimately the game sounds are all memorable, all iconic. Nothing beats the sound of a fucking potato flying through the air to thwack your target. You know what I'm saying? Or when people trip on marbles you threw down and you hear them slide and crash and moan, and, into the ground, annoyed. And as a teenager, when I was able to get my hands on it and play it to no end, because as a kid, I didn't, I wasn't not allowed to play Bully. So, but when I was a teenager, later on, and I finally was able to play it, I remember the music. The music was the biggest thing for me, because I remember it being on, like, as I would do my homework, or as like friends came over, and in that aspect, it's nice to play and hear these awesome sounds and songs that you're gonna remember forever. And that's what made this so much more of an experience. It was honestly so easy to find myself looking up the music on YouTube and vibing with it, while once again doing some mundane task. And I still felt immersed in the world of Bully while I was not even playing the game. you know, and that's what makes it so good. It kind of feels like I'm really going out on a limb here and saying that Bully is one of the greatest games of all time. And honestly, I'm comfortable with saying that Bully is so amazing, and it's more than just all this is so simple. Do missions for the nerds, do missions for the jocks, do missions for the greasers, but at the end of the day, you're fulfilling Jimmy's overall character arcs. You're fulfilling everything he's going to become, and it's like I said, it seems simple, but when you start to do all these things, as the story unfolds and you see more and more, it all comes to fruition by the end of it. And I think that's the most special thing. Is like like in a lot of games nowadays, you beat the game and it's like, you're left with like this stinky feeling, like there was a waste of time. Back in this day, I'm a beat out old head, but back in this day, when you beat a game, like it felt like you did everything, and that's how Bully feels. Like Bully feels like you're completely full. Thanksgiving was a lot. You were completely stuffed. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, let me talk about the composer for this game, because obviously you hear me. I like the music. I like the sounds a lot. His name was Sean Lee, and he composed all 26 tracks for the game. And honestly, it's thanks to his talent, this man right here, that we will remember Bully both critically and musically forever. You know what I'm saying? Because his name is a part of this project forever. And Sean Lee, he did a lot of other projects too. I don't know the full extent of them. When I was doing research for this video, I saw a couple of others pop up. But Sean Lee, he's that guy. He's been doing this for a long time. And obviously the biggest thing I want to talk about, you save the best for last, really, is that's the story. You know, Jimmy Hopkins is not very likable as soon as we meet him. And diving in to his psyche is one of the most interesting things, the game does. But anyway, we'll get into that. He's driving in with his mom and his stepfather in the very beginning of the game, and the tone is pretty much set, at first. It's a bratty, experience. He seems entitled, he has a know-it-all attitude, doesn't respect adults, sounds like a lot of, teenagers that we either know or we once were, so the point is Jimmy is relatable in that aspect. One point of his life, he did not respect authority, did not respect adults, period. And even his own mother's like, we got to get this nigga out, and they send him away to Bullworth. So, you know, but once again, that's what makes him so relatable. Jimmy experiences a lot in the main story, and by the end of it all, you really come to love the character even more. And I've been saying this when, you meet Gary and you're like, bro, Gary is a bitch. Why would anybody want to hang out with Gary? And you realize, like, Jimmy really has no one else. You know what I'm saying? Like, he has no one else. And he comes off as an asshole, but Jimmy decides to trust this guy anyway. He wants to fit in, and he doesn't really care who it is at this point. He just wants someone or a group to stick to. So you kind of have Gary, Peter, and Jimmy. It's kind of like a squad for a while, of course, until, story events. And I don't want to spoil anything here, majorly at least, because some people still have not played Bully, which is crazy to me, but yeah. That's just the reality. Some people have not played this game. But people really, and speaking on to that, the last mission of the game, I know we're jumping all over the place, but I wanted to cover as much as I could in the time that I have. The last mission seems to be the most criticized in the game. A lot of people say that it had a lackluster conclusion, and even one user on Reddit went to say it felt completely unpolished and incomplete. And honestly, I'd say you're pretty much valid in thinking that. In my personal opinion, I'm left, feeling okay with how the story ended, and beyond the end of, the last mission, the game lets you enter Endless Summer, which is basically, you free roaming and you doing whatever you want. You can tie up any loose ends that you had, but I don't want to, I don't really want to spoil too much at the same time, but the story of Bully could be considered a coming of age cliche, or the bully becomes the hero, or redeems himself, or some other assumption. But I feel like it's just fine. This ending, the way the story ended, and the way everything eventually came together, it wasn't meant for a sequel. It wasn't meant for anything, beyond that. There was room for a sequel, but I don't think it was really meant to set a direct sequel up, and if that makes sense. But to kind of conclude here, Bully is a fucking spectacular example of what Rockstar can accomplish. The team spent countless hours and weeks to make this game a reality for us. It came out in 2006. Ultimately that was a risk in itself right there, because this was a new time. You had a lot of new movies, new media, new everything, new technology. And to release a game about bullying, during the height of anti-bullying ads and things like that, it was definitely a risky move. But I can say, like, in 2023, looking back, Bully is a 10 out of 10 cult classic. It really is. And talks of a sequel brewed for so many years. Game Informer even reported that there was 8 hours of gameplay for Bully 2, and that there was a confirmed team of 50 to 70 people working on the game before it was officially canned. But that was for GTA 6. They needed all hands on deck. They essentially did this for a lot of their projects and remasters. They say we're, canceling all projects until this big game, GTA 6, releases, and then we'll work on the other games. So don't count Bully 2 out just yet, Don't count it out just yet. Well, guys, that's all I got in this retrospective video. Some things I probably didn't touch that I should have, but this is my first official video essay about a video game, and I'm just really excited to put it out there in the first place. I've had something like this in the works for a while, so it feels good just to, get this video out. And I got more coming for sure. I'm gonna actually release like a map, like a game plan, a roadmap, so to speak, of what's coming up on the channel and things to expect. But yeah, I really appreciate, drop a like, subscribe if you enjoyed the content. And yeah, have a good day, guys.